there is a difference between politics and political speech. As we know, there is a difference between religion and churches. Welcome everyone to this special edition of Tiny Pulpit Talks that nobody asked me to do. I decided to do it all by myself because this episode we are talking about the interplay between politics, or maybe really political speech, and religion, or maybe really churches. And I say it that way because there is a difference between politics and political speech. As we know, there is a difference between religion and churches. And as we are in this political time of speech and discussions, there seems to be some misconceptions, or maybe some deeper questions is more what we're thinking about right now around these subjects. So first, where does it say in the governing documents of, say, our nation or whatever, that we can have religion? Does anyone know? That's exactly right. The First Amendment, it talks about the free exercise of religion. Now, technically, over the years, there's been some case law to say that we're talking about, I think the word is truly or faithfully held religious ideas. So it's not just that you can say, my church believes this, so I can do this. That's a slippery road to go down. So the establishment of religion happened, and this clause happened of the free exercise of religion, because, people don't know this, the United States and parts of it had state religions. There were states where you had to give money as a tax, and that supported the church, like it still happens in many European countries and other places around the globe. In Virginia, it was the Episcopal Church. In Massachusetts, it was the Congregational Church. And the Unitarian Church actually played a role in bringing about a split in Massachusetts between the Standing Order Church, it was called, and another church. So in the mid-1800s, I think it was 1837, the Unitarians won their case and started a new idea of choosing our own minister, actually, is what we wanted to do in our given church. So that's one of the ways Unitarians were involved in bringing about this idea of a freedom to choose the kinds of religion we want to practice, and also a question about what should be our civic religion. Now, the idea of civic religion is something we also don't think about very much, because if you read some historians, they'll say our only civic religion has become capitalism, but I digress. I'm sure I'm going to get some comments about that one. But let's get back to this question of what we can say in church about things happening in politics. Sometimes people have this idea that a church has to be completely devoid of any kind of political speech. What politics really means is of the people and pertaining to people. And so in churches, we can talk about values, we can talk about ideas that are important to us. The primary concern that churches have is whether they're endorsing a particular partisan political person. A candidate is really the biggest issue. You can get into questions of promoting a particular party, and that is a little farther away from the big no-no of endorsing a candidate. But even that lately has taken a turn, and many churches have started holding events particularly for candidates, and some pastors at some churches have gone so far as to endorsing a candidate and daring the government to come in and attack them or take their not-for-profit status. So the realm of politics and political speech and what happens in a church is coming back again, starting to meld again, and we are seeing these kinds of brazen, if you will, undertakings by people in positions of power in churches. One of the reasons this is possible is what's called the charitable exception for churches. What everyone is always so concerned about is this idea of losing one's tax-exempt status. A tax exemption is something that is given by the Internal Revenue Service. It's part of the code, the tax code of the United States. I know you guys are just really excited to hear about this, but trust me, this is really interesting. Charity is considered in classical theology and ethics the queen of all the other virtues. It is by Aristotle and by Aquinas and by all other measure of sort of classical philosophers and theologians, among other groups of thinkers, the primary goal of great friendship. It is the building block of a civil society, actually, is charity, to be sure that no one ever dips below a point of self-sustainability, self-choice, and self-determination. You better believe that at the core of the principles of the Unitarian Universalist ideas of autonomy must be a question not just of giving to the poor, but of creating a society and giving and nurturing a society whereby no person is not just cast out of the circle of love, where no person is so put upon by that society to not be able to take care of themselves. That is at the core of what almost every ethicist I can think of wants for society. So that exemption exists because the code of taxation and policy wants people to keep giving and to keep supporting ways of actually lifting people out of poverty. That being said, the number one and the number two charitable exemption every year taken nationwide are religious institutions and institutes of higher education. Not every religious institution is committed to changing culture in a way that all people are fully supported and can be self-sustaining and have autonomy. I believe our faith does want that and is doing the work to create such a place. And so that is why I do believe that that exemption should remain for a group like this. I don't know, is every church doing that? Now here's another issue in this whole problem is that I read an article and wrote about it recently where a former IRS agent who took a job as a law professor wrote that there simply are not enough agents at all assigned to the area enforcing not-for-profit compliance or charitable exemption compliance. So the chance that someone would actually lose their tax-exempt status is extremely low. In fact, it's not that it's zero, but it happens very rarely. And part of this happens because if one person loses theirs, it's like a domino effect that so many other people will then come up to be analyzed. And so there is a bit of a detente among, you've never found more religious and church-based cooperation than around the maintenance of the charitable exemption. And so in a sense, there is a feeling of almost hope that we can cooperate around something that ensures our shared existence, our shared future. Now, there's many people who have taken the tack that maybe churches or groups that accumulate a certain amount of wealth, that there be a cap, that over which a certain amount of accumulated wealth, that institution, whether it be one of higher learning or a religious institution, should pay some kind of modified tax on that amount of money that would then support the people being lifted out of poverty or doing other pieces of society's work to create a more ethical culture. I don't really have an opinion on that. I think part of why I believe this church is important is that what I see here, the way people make the decisions about how money is spent here, and the values that folks are willing to discuss and be open to and to grow and increase, to me actually will have an impact on the lives of people in our shared world, and to try to eradicate, though, everyone does this differently, but the hope is to eradicate a sense of hopelessness in people who are living in a way or are experiencing anything in their life that's giving them hopelessness, whether it be addiction, whether it be financial pressures, whether it be what other kind of mental health challenges we're having. We can't solve all those problems, but part of why this place exists and why I believe we are not running afoul of such a exemption is for those reasons. So these are some of the things that we think about, some of the nitty-gritty of how a church functions and how it gets this exemption and what we can say and what we can't say and why. So if you have questions about this or you want to follow up, just drop them in the chat, let me know. I have a feeling we're going to be doing a part 2 on this, following up with some of the questions, whether they be angry or happy or curious, whatever they are, we're not afraid and we want to hear from you. So thanks for this special edition that nobody asked for of Tiny Pulpit Talks. And subscribe, like us, leave notes, and review us in your podcasts. And we want to hear from you. So thanks very much for tuning in, and we will see you on Sunday. Bye-bye.